5 minutes, here we go. All right, last time we left off on being in the world in general as the basic state of Dasein. And we can dig into this, but before we do, I want to shout out some resources. So I'm going to be sharing this link. It's Being in Time, a guide for beginners. I put this together a number of years ago. This was a COVID project, and I have linked out, so I've associated with every single section in the book guidance. So there's a complimentary guide I found personally when I first started reading Being in Time. I had a really hard time cracking it. And I was at the point of giving up. And I decided, you know what, before I give up, I'm going to go read some complimentary text. I found Hubert Dreyfus, who wrote What Computers Still Can't Do. And that is a critique of AI, which dovetails nicely with Being in Time. And so I started with Dreyfus's work. He wrote this Being in the World book. Actually, I have it right here. This is what it looks like. And you can find it on Amazon, among other places. And then there's, I believe he's a former student of Dreyfus, William Blattner. He taught back east, and he wrote a book about Heidegger's Being in Time. And so here you can see I've listed out the relevant chapters for these sections of Being in Time. But maybe more importantly are these lectures from YouTube. You can see they're dated back, almost 20 years ago. Hubert Dreyfus put these together. Now you'll notice that it jumps around a bit. So there's lecture number 1, which talks about the question of being. But then there's this lecture 27 that he gave. And this is where I believe he recommends that you read the introduction last. And that's what we're doing. Anyhow, you can scroll through here. It's got lots of helpful links. I highly recommend getting Dreyfus and Blattner's complimentary books if you're going to be reading Being in Time. If you feel like, nah, it's cool, I'm going to knock it out of the park first time around, I wish you luck. All right, now let's go back to, looks like we got 3 minutes left. Let's spend the last 2 minutes talking about being in the world. Now we left off talking about yo-yo. Yo-yo meaning spaciousness. And so when you feel anxious at work and it's 4 o'clock, you still got a lot to do. The there is such that you lack spaciousness. Everything feels tense, feels up in your face. You feel, maybe it's claustrophobic. You don't feel that feeling on Friday where you got the whole weekend ahead of you. You just wrapped up what you're working on and life feels good. You have spaciousness. And so yo-yo presupposes that we have this kind of spatiality that is not being present. It's not something extended in space that could be quantified. It's a kind of feeling. It's being there. And in this section, we open up with talking about Dasein. Now I mentioned before, Dasein means being there. Here he's really emphasizing that it exists. That doesn't really help very much. He emphasized that there's mindness there, that I am in this there and it is mine. For how much that's worth, great. And then he really starts to lose readers. He starts talking about authenticity and inauthenticity. And I love when he talks about these two modes and then just throws in, and then there's this other mode that's like undifferentiated. We have no idea what you're talking about, Heidegger. So this is something that's going to come together as we move further and further into the work. What you really need to stay focused on this section is what he calls being in the world. And he's going to start unpacking what it means to be in something. And that's, I think, the biggest takeaway in this section. So here he refers to being in the world as this compound expression that represents a unitary phenomenon. So we're going to be breaking this term apart, but just be aware that being in the world is intended to be held all together. So he first starts off by talking about what it means in the world. He says, see third chapter. Remember what I said about the hermeneutic circle, learning a little bit about the parts and then about the whole, and then using what you know about the whole to inform what you know about the parts, and iterating, having your understanding move forward in this sort of expanding way. That's what he intended as well, because had he wanted us to understand what he was writing here, he would have put the third chapter a little sooner. He then touches on this idea of the entity for now. Let's just assume that's you and me, which in every case has being in the world. And then thirdly, he talks about being in. And this is where we finally get to some of the meat that he starts to unpack right away. And so we're going to run out of time here. We got 4 seconds left. But the next time we come back, we'll be touching on what it means to be in the world. Catch you soon.